Welcome back to EQ Video Tip. I'm your host, Eric Forsetter, and today's episode is awesome. We'll get to why in a minute, but before we do, let's review the goals of EQ Video Tip. Welcome back. Did I mention today's episode was awesome? Well, it is. We're going to teach ourselves how to make our lives awesome. And this comes from Eric Barker, a best-selling author. Now, let's face it, who doesn't want to make their life awesome? And there's a little known group of people who really live amazing lives out there. Studies showed these people are happier, they have more friends, they're more successful, they're accomplished, and they're warm, they're solid parents, they're solid members of our community, and they live purposeful, meaningful lives. But what's really interesting is they come from different circumstances. Some are rich, some are poor, they're not united by race, they're not united by religion or even politics, and they're not even organized as one group, believe it or not. And more importantly, they're all good people. They lead their communities, they help shape the world, and they're both inspiring and admired. Holy cow, who are these people? These are superheroes, and what is their secret? Well, we want to know, how do we make our lives more awesome? And in psychology, there's a phrase that's called generativity. And it's about people who are concerned with future generations, and they make the world a better place. Now, researcher Dan McAdams, he did some studies to figure out what made these people into who they are. And it was very simple and very shocking that it was so simple. It was the story they told about themselves. Sounds hard, right? But it's not. And so we're going to do a reformatting of your mental hard drive. It's not going to be that hard to do, and this is a interactive exercise. So grab a pen or pencil probably, because you're going to have to rewrite some things, and we're going to work through this episode and think of it as the director's cut of your life. So take out that pen and paper, and let's start at the beginning. Tip number 1. Those who consistently scored high on the generativity scale felt special. They felt they had a gift. Maybe it's a positive trait like being hardworking or being empathetic. But all of those people felt that they had some special gift. Now, running around thinking you're the chosen one, probably not going to get you a lot of friends. However, it is important to feel comfortable and confident that you have a gift. So I know what you're thinking. Maybe I just don't have a gift. Well, you do, in fact. And it's not something that's economic or material. It's very subjective. So what I want you to do is take a second and ask yourself, what's your gift? You can pause right after this sentence. I want you to write this down. Growing up, I was blessed in that I had been given the gift of, fill in that blank, and pause for a second. After you unpause, and don't skip this, write it down on that piece of paper. Now, if we're to stop here, that wouldn't be good because we'd sound like one self-important jerk. So we're far from being done. But remember, you are special. You do have a gift. And let's use it because we're going to need it going forward. Tip number 2, recognizing the suffering of others. The most generative people also feel they have a gift, but they're also empathetic. They feel special, but they also notice that other people have suffered in their life. Now, having a tiny bit of arrogance about a gift is not an issue if you feel obligated to help other people out. So let's think about who you might have empathy for, whose suffering has moved you. And I want you to write down this sentence. I want you to say, growing up, I was blessed that I had been given the gift of blank, but not everyone had it as good as I did. I remember seeing blank, and I felt I needed to do something about it. Write that down, and we'll go to tip number 3. Tip number 3, and part of this story. People with high generativity are not big questioners. They're not stubborn and set in their ways, but the point is, if you debate the meaning of life every morning, you're never going to get out of bed. So what these people do is they make a decision on how to make a difference. And that's what we're going to talk about. So what do you stand for? What offends your moral taste buds? It's a big question, so don't philosophize over it all the day. Instead, think about what would you do? Do you stand up to bullies? Do you ever feel that it's wrong to leave someone with hurt feelings? Have you put your foot down because something is right or you need to right or wrong? Think about that and fill in this sentence. Growing up, I was blessed in the fact that I've been given the gift of blank. Not everyone had it as good as I did. I remember seeing that blank and needed to do something about it. And then add this sentence. I have always believed that blank was the right thing to do. Fill that in, and then let's go to tip number 4. Here's an important tip. The bad gives way to good. It's a really big one and a really key one. It's not letting those awful moments rest as a contamination of sequences, but instead finding the benefit in the negative, seeing them and learning something from it and making yourself grow. So ask yourself, what was a big setback in my life, or in your case, your life, and maybe it's something that still bothers you, and don't let it become a contamination sequence. Instead, find the valuable and positive lesson that you can take away from it. How did it change you? How did it make you better? Just like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. So let's fill in the next sentence. I face problems, but I'm stronger because of them. They taught me that blank. Fill in that blank for us. And after that, we'll go on to the next tip, because at this point, you're the superhero in the story and you're going to face some internal challenges. So let's figure out what comes from it. Here comes the tricky part, balancing power and love. There's 2 fundamental motives, and they're agency and communion, which is getting ahead or getting along. Too much focus on agency, you're a narcissist. Too much focus on communion, and it could lead to self-esteem issues and depression. So how do you balance the 2? Well, what makes someone generative is they balance both of them. And generativity, as McAdams writes, is the blending of narcissism with a strong and abiding concern for the next generation. So ask yourself, have you been too focused on getting ahead or getting along? And where do you need a balance? Then write this sentence down. I've wrestled with the issue of how to balance getting ahead with getting along and realized that blank. Fill in that sentence. We'll go to the next piece, which is our end, and figure out how we're going to deal with the future. So now that we're at the end of our story, and it's not really the end, we need future and growth because the story keeps getting written. So ask yourself, what are my future goals? Don't say money or freedom or some problem. What do you want to accomplish and how do you want to grow as a person? That's what we care about. What difference do you want to make on the lives of others? Think about CEOs who often become advisors or heroes becoming a mentor. At the very least, you want to help your kids or future generations with their lives. So take this sentence. Going forward, I know there will be more challenges, but I want to continue to grow and flourish by setting a goal of blank. Take a second, let it sink in. Doesn't it feel warm? It's like you just passed a metaphysical Turing test. You've got what it takes to be human. So start acting on it right now. All right, all of you superheroes out here who just wrote those stories, you have what it takes to be a great person. Let's round it up, put it together, put the final editing touches on it, and go forward because this narrative is extremely powerful. That concludes this week's EQ video tip on how to make your life more awesome. If you haven't done so already, here are the sentences that make up the paragraph that's going to make your life even better. So take a moment. I know you still have that pencil and paper out there. Write down these sentences and fill in the blanks. Make your life awesome. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.